All right, Joe White, aka Talahun Hailu. Thanks so
Yeah,
much for coming to my podcast to try to share your experience, your journey of becoming well-known comedians, or we could say like famous by now comedians.
yeah. I'm on my mom's fridge, so yes, famous.
And yeah, it's like I think you're located in Australia right now, but then I think you did some tours in the US and other countries, if that's
Yeah,
correct. Yeah,
yeah.
there's like a lot of awards that you won, but like I'm gonna mention, I think I thought it was the biggest one, which was
Ah,
the Fringe World Festival Award. And also you participated in Australian Got Talent. You were the semi-finalist, which was really awesome. For you start pursuing the comedy career, you were a business home lending manager, or we could say bank manager,
yeah,
according to
yeah.
your mom. What are the shows you are doing now, and also any upcoming big shows that you want people to know? We're gonna start with that and like continue with other questions.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for reaching out. I saw your message and I was like, oh, cool. I have fellow Habesha who is also a creative. There's nothing I
Thank you.
love more than
Um,
connecting with people like you. So thanks for reaching out.
my pleasure.
Yeah, right now I'm in Perth, Australia. So that's my home base, but I travel around Australia and overseas every year. But I spend about 5 months of the year in Perth, and that's where my mom is. So that's my home. At the moment, we have the third largest arts festival. It used to be the second. It's
Mhm.
now the third largest, and it's called the Perth Fringe World Festival. So I'm performing in that festival now. It's 1 month of shows, and so we go
Okay.
from doing like 2 shows a week maybe to like doing 4 or 5 shows a night. So for like a
Oh,
whole month. So it's like it's
okay.
pretty busy right now, and so I'm doing that festival right now. From here, I go to the biggest show. I'm doing Melbourne International Comedy Festival as well, but the biggest show that I'm doing, the biggest festival, is Edinburgh Fringe Festival this year, which is
Yeah.
in Scotland, and that's the biggest festival in the world, the biggest arts festival. Just to give you an idea, in Perth right now, the third biggest arts festival is Perth Fringe, and they have about 700 shows.
Oh,
Edinburgh Fringe has just over 4,000 shows.
oh
So
yeah,
that's the
that's a big
difference in
jump.
the size, yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm doing that one this year. It starts in August. So that's if I guess fellow Habeshas in the UK. That's where I'll be. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now. These are the shows in Perth.
Anytime soon that you're gonna be in the US?
Man, I
Mm.
love the US. I was just there for 3 months last year,
Okay.
and it was, America was amazing. Like the in terms of performing with like big names, it was. I'll
Mm.
be in the green room at the Laugh Factory in Hollywood. Earthquake, one of my favorite acts. Chris D'Elia's performing there. Jane Cook. All these guys have like over 1 million followers. So
Yeah.
these guys got Netflix specials, so they're crazy, famous. That's who you have in America in the green room. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it, the entertainment
Mhm.
side. But then when I saw the way people live in America, I was just like, man, we have it so good in Australia. You know, I don't know if you've been to Australia, but buddy,
No.
Australia, just to give you an idea, I think it's because there's less people here, there's less competition in everything, there's more space.
Mm.
Economically, we're like very privileged. Government gives you free healthcare, the government gives you like welfare payment to keep you going if you need it. Australians in Australia, it's like we're very spoiled. So when I
Oh
came
yeah.
to America and I saw how hard people have to like grind to live. People get a second job just for Medicare there, for healthcare.
Yes.
Here we get it for free. So I was just like, this is
Oh
insane.
wow.
The number of homeless people I saw, I
Oh
was
yeah.
just
Maybe
like,
I should move to Australia now.
good.
Yeah.
We can get on Tinder and then just
Yeah.
expand your online dating opportunity. Meet an Aussie girl
Uh,
and move here.
yeah. Like, do you guys call it like green card or like
Um,
what do you
no,
call
we just call it visa. Perth, where I'm at, like 4 million people.
it?
In
Oh.
California, you got like 55 million people. So
Oh,
that's
I see. Especially right now, like people are moving away from California. Even like taxes are like high and there's like a lot more restriction and stuff.
I went to
And
Austin, Texas. It was really
oh, you had shows there?
no,
Oh, that's really cool.
I did gigs around town, but not like I didn't do my own shows when I went to America because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the demand is like there. So I went there to have a look and jump up around and do spot or gigs
Okay.
around. The coolest gig
Okay.
I did was in New York, and it was with Mike Reese, who's the co-creator of The Simpsons. So that was pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's
you
big.
grew up on The Simpsons, yeah.
Especially if you came to Denver, I'm ready to come and see you. Just let me
Yeah.
know.
And then
Yeah.
you can jump up and open. You can do 5 minutes of
Oh, no.
performance. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
that's very bad idea.
I've got a knack for seeing talent and then not teaching it, but seeing talent and helping the person hone their talent to get them to go up on stage and give it a shot. I think if you're doing something out there that's different to what people in our culture are used to doing and you're
Mm,
loving it, then
yeah,
it's just natural that you want to teach others to do it as well.
but that's
It
really
starts with a
awesome.
little bit of interest, and then before you know it, you're like, you know what? Maybe I should give it a
Mm,
shot. You have
yeah,
fun. You have
maybe.
Habesha parents. That's a lot of content for us. You know, that's how I write. It's
Yeah.
through my experiences. Like I have,
Um,
I remember I did a show in Adelaide, and Habesha audiences are so funny. I did a show in Adelaide, and out of the 100 people, like 90 of them were Habesha, and this is
mm,
the most amount of Habesha I had at my show. A lot of the time, it's mainly white Australians because there's not many Habeshas here. So I had one, yeah, it was Ethiopian guy in the front, and I'm performing. And when I perform, I don't mind talking to my crowd. I'm not scared of them, you know. It's
yeah,
just it ends up being funny encounters when you just talk to people. So I said to
yeah,
him, he was in the front. I said, "What's your name, brother?" And he just kept staring at me. And then I didn't
yeah.
move. I just froze and I just kept looking at him. I go, "What's your
Uh,
name?" And he just kept staring at me. And I was like, "I'm not gonna move on. What's your name?" Everyone started laughing.
I know.
And he stood up and he goes, he looks around and then he
Yeah,
looks at me and he goes, "Why you talk to me? Not everyone is looking at me." I put
yeah,
him on the spot, but not on purpose.
yeah,
If he just answered my question, I would have just moved on. But he panicked. It was
yeah, I
so
know.
funny. We all started laughing and I was calming him down while I'm doing
Yeah,
the show. But that
mm.
spontaneity, that's what the audience loves. Connecting with one person, like it's just me and him in the room, but we have like 100 people watching, you know?
Yeah,
So
it
they're
feels more
laughing.
natural. You
Because
say,
I'm comfortable, but I'm there to hold his hand and get him through it.
I remember there's this guy, you hold his hand and you like try to make him do skista.
Hmm. Aussie guy, yeah. Yeah, he didn't get up. He just sat there, he put his hand on his waist and he did this.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
That was hilarious.
this was that show was 2 days ago.
Okay, I think I saw that only like Instagram post then if
Yeah.
it's
So
like
it's
new.
mainly like I get a
Yeah.
lot of white people who come to the shows, you know. They love that window to look into a different world, you know.
Like you see like
Yeah.
comedians, it loses that like authenticity. It
Yeah.
would be kind of another thing, but like the same thing. When you show them something different, it would be more interesting. It's just like
Yeah.
why people from other countries they want to try Ethiopian food, and it's just
Yeah.
like
A
they're just
spoon
out to us.
and a knife and a fork.
Yeah.
Have you seen white people do that? I'm like, oh, why?
Uh,
I see what you mean, you know, with the jokes being repeated. And this is why I wish I was a musician, you know? Because
mm,
you hear your, like, if I release a song as a musician and you love the song, and then I announce a live show and you pay to come see me live, what are you doing? You're like, sing my favorite song.
mhm.
You would never have people come into a comedy show and be like, do my favorite joke.
Yeah, you always
They're
want
like, I
something
hate
new.
that. Constantly have to come up with new stuff. The pressure is, you know, it's mounting,
Mm.
but it's a job that you asked for.
Oh yeah,
So we're
yeah.
constantly writing new stuff.
Like I saw a couple of like documentaries, stand-up comedians, gave me kind of perspective of like how they start from like writing it to bring it to the audience, and it
Yeah.
was a lot more work than I expected. It's
Yeah.
tough. It's
A
not
lot of
easy.
work, isn't it? We write it, and then see every year I have to write at least 80% new stuff because I got shows every year.
Mhm.
And so people are coming back because they're like, I loved your last show. I'm going to come see your new show. And so every year I have to 80% new, 20% of the best of last year. That's what the show is advertised as. So when I write new stuff, the way I write is I go on adventures. So part of going to America was really to write new show about my adventures in America.
Mhm.
And I did that. So you write the joke and then you have to go to an open mic and try the joke. And
Yeah.
then when the joke works, great. If the joke doesn't work, it's either you get rid of it or you tweak it and you come back again. Now, the
Okay.
most painful, yucky feeling that you get is when you've been doing so well in comedy and then you write new stuff and you don't know if it's funny or not, and you have to go
Mhm.
on stage and try it, and it's not
Mhm.
funny. And then you just have to
Oh,
bomb on stage for
oh
like
no.
5, 10 minutes, and you're like, ugh, what am I doing here? You know, but
That
that's
must.
part of the process of sharpening your tool and trying to find out if this joke works or not before you take it to live audiences that actually pay to come and see. Because you know, Habesha family, when you're a creative, they're like, get a job, man. You know, get a job. Like, you know,
Uh,
my mom, when I was a bank in the banking, yeah,
yeah.
she would tell everyone. I do this on my show. She was like, my son is bank manager. She would tell everyone, bank manager, bank. And I wasn't. I was a business home lending manager, but in her head,
Yeah.
bank manager. That's it. And then she would tell everyone, and I'm like, ask her what I
Uh,
do now, and she would just go, he's a good
mm.
boy. Don't worry. He's a really good boy. He loves his mom. That's what matters.
For me, like my parents, they don't mind because I'm doing this extra to like programming job. So like they don't
Okay.
mind as long as I don't
Ah,
quit my software job,
I see.
my
You know,
programming job.
the real test is when you quit.
Oh yeah. To be able to pursue that full time, I have to earn what I earn in programming on this podcast. It's gonna take a while. Like I'm excited to see what's gonna happen in like
Yeah,
yeah.
you know the saying again now. Work part time on your dream and full time in your job, and then switch. You know, full time on your dream, part time on your job, and then you
Mm.
just go full time on your dream.
Or else you're gonna be like starving.
Well, sometimes you got to starve a little bit for your art. You know, you got to starve a little bit. You know,
Yeah,
you
but
got to
not too
stack
much.
up and go through at least 4 minute, 4 boxes of 2 minute noodles. You know, so
Yeah.
you gotta sometimes go in the dirt and get your hands dirty to make your dream a reality. You know,
Oh,
but
for sure.
you'll see it, you'll feel it, and you'll feel the motivation, and you'll feel it like no one else feels it. When I was at that crossroad of having to decide between my banking job and my comedy, it wasn't easy. That was probably one of the hardest decisions I had to make. I just had to follow my heart. You know, I was a lot happier when I was doing comedy than when I was in banking. Banking was a very
Okay.
serious job. You know, I was on a 80K base, and then with bonuses, you can go over 100K for the year. You know, you have
Okay.
your own company car, company credit card, you suit it up. If you forgot your tie at home, they send you home. It was very like very strict job. You process home loans, prepare credit applications, go through financials, you know, balance sheet, profit and loss, all this stuff. And so if you stuff it up, you know, there's a lot riding on it. You can get a lawsuit against you or against the bank, and you're the one to blame. When you clock off at 4:30 p.m., you haven't really clocked off because you got work for the next day that you're taking home that you have to get
Mm.
started on because you're behind. So you end up working till like 8 p.m., 7 p.m. at night. You know, so at
Oh,
one
okay.
stage, I was doing my banking job. They were paying for me to do a finance degree, and
Mm.
I was writing jokes and hitting up open mic. And then the
Oh,
hitting up the open mics, the writing jokes started, the jokes started paying like good money, and I started doing festival shows and getting money from the festival. And so I had to drop one of the three. So I dropped the finance degree and I just
mm.
focused on the banking and the
Mm.
comedy. And then the
Yeah.
comedy started getting busy. And then I'm like, I got to make a decision, you know? Do I
Yeah.
focus on banking or do I drop the comedy? I'm like, there's no way I'm going to drop amazing
Mm.
thing that brings me to life every time I perform, you know? The
Nice.
validation that you get,
That's
that's not,
awesome.
you know, that's a part of why you do it, you know?
Yeah.
But when you use your intelligence and you create something and you showcase it and it's received, you know, in the best way, and people are actually happy that you came up with it, that you delivered it,
Mm.
it's a sense of achievement that's like, it's not like when you get paid for a job you did. It's just, it feels so different. I can't explain it. You can only experience it, I reckon. But it feels
Mm.
like you're living in your purpose. And I love that feeling. And so I just went and handed in my resignation letter, and they couldn't believe it. They're like, why don't you take a year off, do comedy, and then if it doesn't
Oh.
work out, you can come back. And I said,
Yeah.
no, because then I've got like a safety bridge to run
Mm.
back when things get tough. And I didn't want that. So I
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, burn the ships, burn the bridge, let's go in.
Uh,
You know, 2 minute noodles for a whole year if I have to at work. And here we are today. You know, I'm very happy that I made that decision to leave the bank.
that's inspiring and really awesome because it's really cool
My
how you
mom was
like.
like, "Are you sure you want to leave the bank? I can't tell people you're a
uh,
clown. I have to tell them you're bank manager." I'm like,
yeah,
sorry.
but yeah, it's
She's
like.
very supportive now though, because she comes to the shows and she hears the story about her and me like doing her mannerisms and like, hello, my son, how are you? You know, and I go, that's my mom, and she's like, oh my God, that is exactly like me. You know, you have my eyes, you look like me, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
you. Mannerisms, mom.
Like the comedy have like infinite potential, can like reach as many people as you want. I feel like a lot of people would like struggling on that, where they spend a lot of time in college, invest time, money on getting a degree or something that's how they're gonna do all of their life. They don't feel satisfied with that. So like they
Yeah.
try to kind of like branch out and try to kind of dip their toes into other careers, as you did.
They do a lot of the time to impress their parents, you know.
Yeah.
Here's a degree for you, mom, for you, dad. But then the person's got a bloody and you know, parents. Once you give them a degree, what do they want? A master's,
Yeah.
maybe
I
a
thought
second degree. And you're like, Jesus,
yeah. I
right?
thought you were
And
gonna say a wife.
no, that comes more expensive. It's added. You give them a
No.
wife, then they want the kids. You know, you give them one kid, they want two kids. So
Yeah.
ultimately, it's like I hope and pray that people are strong enough and mature enough to say, no, this is what I want to do because this makes me happy, and then actually follow through and be courageous enough to follow through and do it. That's hard because you love your parents so much and we don't want to disappoint them, you know? But I think very loving parent, you can easily sit them down and convince them if what you're doing really makes you happy and it's a creative path. Parents who genuinely want their kids to be happy and do well in life because they're happy. And when you're happy doing something, a way that you do it that shows that you love doing it, and therefore it's done beautifully, and therefore the demand is there for it. A lot of the time, if you can just show your parents, if you can just have that heart-to-heart conversation with your parents, because the parents a lot of the time are just like scared for you, you know, like my mom, obviously she wants me to stay in banking, and because that's a safe path, and she wants her son to do well financially, buy a house, get married, blah blah blah, right? But it wasn't making me happy, so it was coming at the expense of my happiness, my mental health. I love my mom because my mom is very supportive and she genuinely just wants you to be happy. And we come from a place where, you know, we lived on the streets, we ate out of bins to survive, we had nothing, you know, so we come from that, so we're not scared to not have anything, you know, because we've already been at the bottom. All this is a bonus. So now my mom is like, I just want you to be happy. I want you to be successful in whatever you choose to do. And when you love something and you do it, the world will be quick to give you a response, whether this is your thing or not, right? Because if I did stand up 5 minutes, my first 5 minutes, I thought my heart was going to leave my chest. That's how much it was, boop, 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 you know? But when I did it, within the first 5 minutes, there was like 3 or 4 applause breaks. That's feedback straight away, whether I'm on the right path or not. And then that night when I was driving home, I was just like, I was like reborn. I was like, what is this? What is this euphoric feeling of accomplishment and living in my purpose that I'm feeling right now? And honestly, I had to pull over because I was overcome with a lot of emotions. That's how much that moment meant.
Like a new potential that you haven't experienced before.
An experience. And there was a lot of fear, obviously. There was a lot of fear, but I think part of being courageous is managing that fear and moving in with caution, but still moving forward. That's what I did. And the reward is the happiness that I'm experiencing right now, the people that I'm reaching. My mom even says to me, she goes, you have restored a lot of respect in my name because of the stories you tell about me. She's like, people understand that this is how we used to live. You know, they understand that I was a struggling single mom of 6 kids. This is what we went through. This is what I fought to bring you guys here. So she didn't suffer in silence, which is the worst kind of suffering, is when you go through something and then no one cares. No one heard it. You've got it inside you, and you know, you can't even tell people because their English is not that good. So I'm able to tell her story, but the only reason people are listening to me is because I'm rewarding them with jokes at the end. So you're laughing at the same time, but then you're like, holy shit, his story is, but it's my mom. She's a warrior.
Not just about your mom, you're telling a story of other mothers who went through similar thing too. So their stories like out there, so people could actually like understand their strengths. Yeah, that's really awesome. She must be like very proud.
Dude, my mom is proud, you know.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
awesome.
gonna say it, but I know I'm the favorite in the family. There's 6 of them. And she's like, I love all my children equally, and then wink. I'm like,
Yeah.
in Australia, we have like there's a stigma around refugees, you know. Oh, don't let, there's too many in. Oh, they're line cutters, you know, they're cutting in line and coming here by boat, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of stigma around refugees. And so I guess what I like to do through my work is also just let people know that I came here as a refugee. So when people come to my shows and they're like, you have to go see Joe White, we love him. Oh my God, he's so funny. Oh, you know, he's amazing. Oh, I love his work, blah, blah, blah. Then I go, yeah, okay. Well, I came here as a refugee. The refugees that you see, you know, come in by boats, the way they behave, the way they are, the refugees that new to Australia, they came by plane, but they're very quiet, they're scared, they're timid, they're not sure how to move, their English is not good. I go, that used to be me. I was given an opportunity to find this layer of myself, you know, and there's many layers within ourselves. This is one of my layers, right? And so for me to get to this layer, I had to go through the process. Those other refugees that, you know, you're looking at them and you're going, oh, bloody refugees, blah, blah. They could one day be like people your kids will look up to one day. Give them a chance, you know. That's part of the message when I perform as well. And that's why I don't shy away from sharing my stories, you know. I don't go, nah, I'm not a refugee, you know. Yeah, I'm just me, man, you know, like I'm one of the cool, you know. It's like, no, man, like this is where I come from, and that's where I was. Here is where I am now. This is what I plan to do. This is the roles these people played in my life. This is the role the community played in my life. And I think we should pass that on to the next refugees coming as well, and like help them to be the best version of themselves, you know. And I think the best way I can do that is by focusing on what I'm good at and how I can use that to influence my community for the better. Not just
Okay.
my Habesha community or my African community, but the wider community as well.
That's a powerful thing, and I hope like people who are listening to this like really kind of like pay attention.
Two
Draw a
people
pin right
listening, your
now.
mom, your
Yeah.
dad, pay attention. No, I'm joking.
Take notes.
Take notes. Yeah.
For me, what I do is like instead of taking notes, I just listen to the podcast like 10 times. That
Yeah.
way it's like easy to remember. I really appreciate humans in general are like so much, has like so much potential. There's a book, I think it's called like Die Empty. The book says you should die empty with all of your potential is like out there.
It's a Les Brown quote as well, die empty, live fully and die empty. There's a
Yeah,
lot of people that have gone to their cemetery without achieving their dreams and their goals, and so they died with them.
exactly.
And so yeah, if you live fully and you live a life of contribution, then you die empty. I love it, and it's
Yeah,
so true. It's like
100%.
they say people play it safe all the way until the end of their life, and it's like you're not gonna come out of this life alive. You might as well come out and have fun. That's what Les Brown says, which is so
Yeah.
true.
An interesting question I want to ask you. A painter has like a brush and colors like to produce that art. Like a musician would have like drums, like it might be like a musical software to compose or make that music. Like what does a stand-up comedian have? Like the tools they use. How do you like come up with the idea? Or
I just go through, like, I write based on my experiences. Like I
yeah.
could be sitting down, my mum's making buna, I could be sitting down with her, and then she would say something or do something, and I'll just start laughing, and I'll go, "Why are you doing this to me? I'm trying to enjoy my time with you. I have to write." Or I'll take her shopping, and I'm not writing. I'm just like shopping. We're just hanging out at the shops, and then we will be like at one of our big shops here called Maya. It's always packed with people. Like we'll be there, and then we're leaving, and my mom is in traditional Ethiopian attire. We're leaving, and she's like by the exit door. She will see another Habesha man that she knows, and she's like, "Ah, salam nachu, never nachu, hello, how are you?" She's like, "Oh, how's your wife? She was pregnant." He's like, "Oh, she gave birth," and my mom will be like, "Ah," and she will hold his hand, and by the door, I think they go, like that.
That's awesome.
Like we know what that is. That is like, celebration. It's like,
Yeah, they're happy for them.
yeah, and she just got, and she's looking around, and everyone's like, what the hell's going on? And I'm just there going,
Uh,
like why? And
They're
then I
like
say,
called
so then I'm
security.
working. Yeah, so then I'm working in my head, and I'm like, oh, this is so funny. And then when
Mm.
I'm on stage, I'm like, oh, she's so good at doing it. People didn't even know it was her that was doing it, and her mouth was closed, and she was going. And so then security came over, and he thought it was the door alarm. It's like, what's wrong with it? It's not working.
Yeah.
It's broken.
Yeah.
And so that's how I write. It's through my experiences. When it comes to me, it comes to me.
Okay.
But I'm always attentive to it. So it's
Okay.
not like I'm not one of those where I go, okay, I have to sit down and I have to write a joke now. Like
Mm.
that's not how I write. I just do things. I just go live my life. When I'm talking to someone, like when we're sharing stories, I try to make them laugh.
Mm.
That's just
Okay.
who I am inherently. I'm just like that. That's the type of person I am. When I was 14 years old, um, and we had like a bunk bed, me and my younger brother, and his friend would come over, and he would sleep over, and they'll be like, "Oh, we can't sleep. Can you entertain us?" And I'll go, "Oh yeah, I can do that thing I do where I get the two dolls and I make them have funny conversations." And they're like,
Mm.
"Yeah, if you could do that, that'd be amazing." So then I'm making these two dolls have funny conversations, and they're laughing, and I'm just thinking of this stuff on the spot. Like that's how I write. I just talk to people, make them laugh, and then I go, "Oh, that was funny what I said. Oh, let's see if I can work that into a joke." So then when I say it and it's funny, then usually the premise, what it's
Mm.
about, is true, but then the
Okay.
punchlines are like added or exaggerated for laughter.
You have that joke and it would be like kind of take a mental note. And whenever you have to write it down, you make it more like digestible.
There's a way you
Okay.
have to tell the audience because the audience is not your friend. They don't know
Yeah.
you. Some of them, this is the first time they're seeing you. So when you tell them, you have to set up the setting. You're like a painter with a brush. You can't miss anything. Otherwise, the painting is not complete. So you
Yeah.
gotta tell it properly. So me and my mom's a single mom of 6 kids. She's an amazing woman. I love her to bits. So already I've established my relationship with my mom and who she is, because
Mhm.
6 kids by yourself to raise is not easy job. So they have an idea. Very traditional Ethiopian mom. So they have an idea what type of mom she is, and I've established that quickly. Then I go through, we were at Maya. So boom, setting done. And
Okay.
you know,
You don't even notice it when you're like sitting down and listening. You're just hearing jokes, but
yeah,
then behind that, it's really cool to see how that works. You're
yeah.
like sometimes you know how like you tell a joke, but like if it's like too long of a sentence or something, it doesn't hit the mark.
20 to 30 seconds. Every 20
Okay,
to 30 seconds, I will give you a punchline.
got you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it just
And
keeps
if it
flowing.
goes, yeah, if it
Yeah.
goes for a minute and there's no punchline, it's because I am very confident the ending will be
Mm.
worth your wait. And if
Okay.
it's not, you don't trust me anymore. So the audience loses trust. And so
Mm.
the next joke you do, it better be quick and it better be good to recover. Otherwise, it just gets worse because they don't trust you anymore. So even later
Yeah.
on, the longer you wait to make them laugh, the less they trust you, the harder the gig gets.
That makes sense because the average human right now, like I think the research was done in the US, it has like attention span of 5 seconds.
Yeah. That's why
So
when you come out straight away, you have to establish I'm funny. Because when
yeah,
you come out, the audience is like looking at you and they're judging you straight away. Like, oh, I just caught an Uber here and I had an Asian Uber driver. He was so lovely. So they know you're not racist. Right? And you go, oh,
Mm.
he asked me what I did for a living. I told him I was stand-up comedian. And he was like, me too. And then I was like, oh
Yeah.
my God, do you perform around town? And he goes, no, but when I stand in front of my wife and I can't get it up, she looks at me. And you're like, what? And then the audience laughs. And that in itself
Uh,
is only what, 10, 15 seconds?
yeah, I think it's all like kind of 3, 4 jokes in that second.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But that's so the punchline is really when I stand in front of my wife and I can't get it up, she laughs at me. That's where I want the big laughs, right?
Mm.
Everything else along the way is just me connecting with you. If
Okay.
you laugh along the way while I'm connecting with you, it's a very good indicator that when the big punchline hits, there's going to be
Yeah.
big laughs.
Okay. Yeah. It would kind of like add up to the.
The big indicator.
I'm sure whoever is thinking about like being a comedian is kind of like should take notes again.
Yeah. Well, they can
Yeah,
always,
makes it
if
easier.
someone wants to be a comedian, they're not sure and
Yeah.
they need some advice or some help, they can always message me. I respond to people
Okay.
that are not weird, you know? Like yourself, you know, I can see you're creative and you're a fellow Habesha and you reached out and I was like, hell yeah, let's collab, you know, and you did it in a very polite, professional way. And so, you
Oh,
know,
thanks.
you deserve my time. And so that's why I was like, oh, cool, yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. I want to get your perspective like on this. There was a Latino comedian that was like based in the US. Yeah, he was mentioning this in one of his like stand up. What he was saying was people would call him he's like kind of the best Latino American comedian. And he was saying that like I'm not Latino American comedian. I'm a comedian who happens to be Latino. So he should
Yeah.
be considered as comedian first. For you, people could call it like, oh, he's like the Ethiopian comedian or a comedian that's like Ethiopian. So like, what's your perspective on that?
I don't mind any of it, you know, like I think that if you focus on the titles and the headlines, it really takes you away from perfecting your craft, you know, and
Mhm.
being in that frequency of happiness and vibing that you come up with your best joke, and your best joke is your next joke, right? And
Right.
so if you just put your head down, focus, and write, then like Dave Chappelle, for example, is so good. So you become so good that they say you are the best comedian in America. You are the best comedian in Australia. They don't say you are the best Ethiopian comedian in Australia. The only reason they're saying you're the best Latin comedian in America,
Mhm.
blah, 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 is because you're not the best comedian in America. You know,
Oh, okay.
it is what it
That's a good
is,
point.
right?
Yeah.
Because look at Dave Chappelle. They don't say he's the best African American comedian. No,
Yeah.
they say he's the GOAT, he's the greatest of all time, he's the best comedian. So
Mhm.
really, it's like you can fight people to change the title they're placing on you, you know,
Mhm.
and that's a lot of energy and time wasted really from your end. Or you can just go, thank you, and just continue doing your own thing. It's like if you have to, the saying, if you have to stop and throw a rock at every dog that barks at you, you will never make it to your destination, you know?
That's a very nice way to look at it. And I say like usually your works kind of speaks for itself usually.
100%.
Then
Right?
yeah.
If someone says I'm the best Ethiopian, I haven't heard it, but if they say I'm the best Ethiopian comedian in Australia,
Mhm.
then I just go, oh, awesome, man. I think there's me and one other guy, and I started way before him, so thank you, you know. And then if
Mm.
they say, you know, you are the best Ethiopian comedian if I'm in Ethiopia or wherever, right?
Mhm.
To me, I appreciate the compliment because it could have gone the other way. They could have said you are the worst Ethiopian comedian in Australia, whatever. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
either way, whether it's good compliment or bad compliment, I say thank you and I move on.
Okay.
Focus on your work because your work will speak for itself.
That makes 100% sense.
Unless you
Uh,
love drama, and then you're like, "Excuse me, I think it is
uh,
politically
mm,
incorrect that you have labeled me as Ethiopian comedian instead of just a comedian."
yeah, let's meet on YouTube Live. Get
Yeah,
some drama.
yeah. Because at the
Mm.
end of the day, you know, people can complain about everything. You can always
Oh,
find something to complain about if you want to complain about something. You know,
oh, for
uh,
sure.
like I started when I started comedy here in Perth. There was maybe me and one other black person, um, and it honestly felt lonely. And I was like, why aren't there more black people doing stand-up comedy? And so I was like, maybe it's because they're like me. They didn't know they could, you know. And so now
Mm,
that I'm doing it, I'm like, how can I pay back to my community? And one of them was by teaching Africans, young Africans, how to do stand-up comedy. So I went through a list of friends that I grew up with that I thought were funny. And I
mm.
reached out to them and I was like, you have to do this thing called stand-up comedy. It's going to be great, you know. They're like,
Yeah,
no,
that's
it's not my
awesome.
thing, man. Are you crazy? That's your thing, you know. No, we'll just come support. I'm like, man, you're funnier growing up. You know, we used to roast each other. You have to do it. They're like, no, it's not my thing. One of my buddies, he kept saying, no, no. I just kept harassing him, you know. And then he came watch me. And he's like, man, you killed it. That was amazing. And he saw the attention you get after the show, right? People going, oh, that was amazing. Can I take a picture? And I was
Yeah,
like, you should do it, man. I'll teach you everything. You know, I'll hold your hand the whole way. And he goes,
yeah.
let's do it.
That's
So then we
awesome.
co-wrote his first 5 minute and we took
Mm,
him to an open mic. We practiced in front of the mirror. We went through the mic etiquettes and expectations. And he's Sudanese, this guy. So he's tall, he's dark,
mm,
stands out heavily in Perth because Perth and Australia in general, it's mainly white people. So he stands out
mm,
heavily. And he gets
mm.
up on stage and he does 5 minutes of amazing comedy. They loved
Yeah.
him. And then
Wow.
he's like, this is the best feeling ever. I'm like, I know. And I said, now go do another one. And he did another one and another one. And before you know it, he ended up winning Best Newcomer in Perth for stand-up comedy. They flew
Oh,
him to the Melbourne International Comedy Festival to perform in front of 2,000 people. He made it on TV. He
nice.
came runner-up at Australia's Got Talent this year.
Mhm.
Sorry, last year. And he does the festivals with me everywhere we go now.
That's just great.
And then I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, cool. Now we got the wheels going. Let me repeat this again. So I'll find someone else, and
Mm,
he's Zimbabwean, and I'll go, man. Let me teach you stand-up comedy. We don't have black people in the scene. You'd be great. And he'd be like, yeah,
mm,
can you teach me? Next
um,
thing you know, he's also performing. He's doing festivals with me now, right?
oh,
And
wow.
I'm
That's
like, okay, cool. Now, how do I showcase this black act to the people? Because we
mm,
don't have our own gala. We don't have like in festivals. I would see the best of British, the best of Asia, but I would never see anything like to do with Africans. So then
yeah.
I put my own money behind it and started a show called The Best of Africa, and it
Mm,
showcases African acts, which is me
yeah.
and some of these people that I helped come on the scene, but we'll get someone else from outside of Australia to come and close the show that are really funny. And the
Okay.
show ended up selling out. It ended up winning best lineup show in the festival. Um,
Nice.
and it's in demand, you know?
Yeah.
And so, like, I knew it. I knew we were funny. I knew there was a demand for us out there. But the promoters, the bookers, for whatever reason, they just didn't see, um, the demand. They didn't think there was a demand
Mm,
for black people, comedians, African comedians. And so instead of just looking at it and whinging and
mm,
saying, this is unfair, there's a lack of representation. This is unfair. It's like, yeah, you can say all of that, but ultimately, it's like you have to try to do something to change it, right? Actively, not just complaining.
yeah.
And so I went ahead and did this, and then Best of Africa is born. So now we're doing Best of Africa at the Perth Town Hall in front of 300 people on the 19th of Feb in Perth. And yeah, it's showcasing African acts, and I'm hosting it.
Okay.
I always host it.
Yeah, I would love to see that on YouTube. I don't think I could be there like in person, but
Yeah, yeah.
if it's
We'll come to America one day. You never know.
but I don't want to wait until there.
Yeah,
If I
yeah,
could, if I could see the show that you guys are doing on February, maybe
yeah,
if you could post it on like YouTube, maybe like YouTube
yeah,
Live or something, that would be great to
yeah.
see. But yeah, like keep at this. It's like I think you're onto something great.
I had a kid who goes to me at a show. He goes, "I want to be a comedian when I grow up, but I'm scared that people will laugh at me." And I was like, "Oh my God, this kid just wrote this joke." I'm like, "This kid is he's already funny, you know?"
A very well executed joke too. Another thing I want to ask might be called like title. It says Ethiopian, still not hungry.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean what I think it means.
yeah. It means exactly what it's written. That's what it means. Because here's the thing,
Yeah.
like it's it's mind blowing the amount of times when I moved to Australia. And I tell people I'm Ethiopian, it's mind blowing how much they connected me with being hungry. You know, they
Mm.
would always go like, "Oh yeah, you must be hungry," you know. Oh,
No, that's the biggest joke.
yeah. So it's
Mm.
like, so then I was like, oh, maybe. So I used to start my show when I used to come on stage when I was doing 5 minutes. I'd come on stage and I'd be like, "My name is Joe. I'm Ethiopian and I'm not hungry," you know. And then I'll
Mm.
just pause and I'll go. I just thought I'll put it out there, and then
Yeah,
they'll start laughing. Yeah. And
yeah,
so then I would do my jokes. And so then I was like, what should I call my show? And so I called my show Ethiopian and Not Hungry.
yeah.
And then I wanted to keep the title because it was getting great reviews and it was a funny topic. So I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I keep it? So I went with Ethiopian and Still Not Hungry.
It grabs your attention, and I feel like your show title might do some justice
Well,
a
there you
little bit.
go. You know, I love that you see it like that because that's how I want people to see it.
Yeah,
Right? That is my intention behind it. It's because it's like I want to be funny, but at the same time, I want to try to have a positive message with it. I don't want to be the stereotypical sellout where I go, I'm Ethiopian and I'm hungry. Ugh, you know?
yeah,
It's a shame because I've had Ethiopians who go to me, we're not coming to your show because you're making fun of Ethiopians. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, the title makes fun of Ethiopians. And I'm like,
uh,
how does it make fun of Ethiopians? And they're like, well, it says Ethiopian and hungry. You are not
uh,
reading the title. You are projecting how you feel about Ethiopia through the
exactly.
mass multi-million dollar media, you know?
Yeah,
Here I am with my $10 project and the time Ethiopian and still not hungry. At least I'm fighting a little bit of that, you know, to try and change that narrative.
yeah.
But I go, no, it's Ethiopian and still not hungry. Then they go, oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, I guess I'll come support. And I'm like, if that went over your head, a lot of the jokes will as well. So I'm not interested. Don't come, you know? But then when some people do it, and I just look at them and I go, no, that's not what it says. It's not hungry.
Maybe like double check the title.
But if
um,
they don't, because they're projecting. This is what we do as humans. We are quick to grab onto information if it supports our narrative of whatever it is that we're looking at. Just so
yeah,
we can
for
feel
sure.
like, yeah, I knew I was right. And then it's like, oh, I can say he's making fun of us. Yeah, you're making
Mm.
fun of us. And then when they get caught out because they misread it, they go,
Yeah.
oh, I guess we'll come support. And it's like,
Mm.
don't even bother.
Maybe you could write a joke about that too. I think that would be funny.
Yeah, I should.
When you're like pursuing a stand-up comedy, did you have like mentors kind of to show you the ropes and like the way? How do you kind of navigate the waters?
My sister, she came home and she was at the markets seeing a friend, and then her friend is like, oh, look, all this shiny glowing stuff, let's go in and see what that is. And she went in
Mm.
the markets and she ran into like a psychic lady, as they call her, like a fortune teller. It's very bad
Mm.
in Habesha culture, obviously, but we're
Uh,
very westernized, man. And my sister's just like, oh, we'll just see this what she says, let's go, it's only $30. And the
mm.
lady was saying some stuff that really freaked my sister out because my sister is like, how does she know these things? She's not supposed to know these things. So
Mm.
my sister went home and she called me and she was very shaken up. And she told me what happened. And then she goes, you should go and see her. Because at the time I'd come out of like a long-term relationship. And so my life was like in chaos, and I'm just trying to find order. And so she goes to me, you should go see this lady, see what she would say. And I was in a stage of my life where I was just trying the many different things to try and find my purpose, right? So I was like, yeah, I have nothing to lose, you know, let's go see what she says about me. I think it will be a fun little game between me and my sister. And I
Yeah.
went to the psychic lady and she goes, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a banker." And she starts laughing and she's like, "It's not your calling." She goes, "Your calling is something to do with stage and talking to people." And then she goes, "Are you a
Wow.
rapper?" And I said, "No." And she goes, and I go, "Are you stereotyping me because I'm black?" And she goes, "No, no, no, no." And she starts going, "No." And then I said, "I'm joking." And she's laughing. And
Yeah.
then she goes, "I don't know what it is, but it's supposed to be with stage and the energy is beautiful. And I see you've been very successful at it." And so I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know what it is." But I remember 2 months prior to that, my friends, my family, just people in my life would be like, "Man, you'd be a very funny comedian. You should try stand-up comedy." And I'll go, "Nah, it's not my thing. It's not my thing." Right. And
Right.
then I told her this, and she goes, "That's what you're supposed to do. It's not banking, it's not rap, any of that stuff. It's stand-up comedy. You have to do it. I promise you, you're going to be great at it. Um, find a way to do it. Go online, look for schools that teach it." Right? Because I'm
Okay.
like, I
Yeah.
don't know anyone who does it. There's literally no one I know. So she said, "Go online and have a look." And anyways, I said, "Yeah, no worries. Thank you, ma'am." I'm just like, this woman is crazy. I'm going to stay in banking. I was leaving and she messaged me and she's like, "You have to do it. You're going to be so good at it. You're going to be very popular. Don't forget me." All this stuff. And I was like, whoa, is this lady onto something? Like she really believed in something that I thought was like ridiculous. And I just ruled her as crazy. But then I
Mm,
went home and I was remembering about what she said to me. And she said, "If you don't do it, if you don't at least try it, you're going to be an old man and regret the way you lived your whole life." And I
mm,
was like, okay, cool. I don't agree with what she's doing, right? It's whole
right.
psychic. That's not what I grew up around. But
Yeah.
I said, I'm an open mind. I'm a student of life. And if I think I know everything, I'll never grow. So I don't know anything. I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I'm open to learning. This is not my world, but I'm willing to go in and learn something and then continue down my path of this journey called life. And I don't want to be an old man and regret the way I live my life. I mean, that's crazy. You don't want to do that. No one wants to do that. And at the
Yeah.
time, I was into self-development, Les Brown, Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, Think and Grow Rich, the book. Like I was heavily into this. 8 hours a day, I would do self-development, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of the message behind that is fear, false evidence appearing real. Do not let fear stop you. Do not let fear get between you and your unknown heaven. Go into the unknown and conquer it. That's your heaven. It awaits there for you. Try it. Don't be
Yeah.
an old man that lived safely and then regret the way you lived your life. So what she said really made me go, "Ah, I have to go online and I have to find this school and I have to try stand-up comedy." And so I went online and I found the school and it was in
Yeah.
a different state. So I had to fly for it. And the guy's like, "You're flying in to do it." I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay." So I flew in to do it. I did a
Yeah.
5 day course of stand-up comedy and I was like one of the best in the class. And then when I came back, the guy gave me some information where to perform in Perth. So I went and watched for about 3 months, just comedy open mics, just watched. And then I said, okay, I'm ready to jump up. I remember once I watched 11 hours of comedy, just
Mm,
sat there, just watched show after show after show after show at a festival. And then I said,
right.
okay, cool, I'm ready to jump up. And then the first 5 minutes I did was like 3, 4 applause breaks. And I was like, I have found my path, right? This lady called it. And so
Mm,
because this was something I would never do, this
yeah.
was something crazy. It's who I am. Though. I always made my friends laugh. I always made my mom laugh. Even when we were poor living on the streets, like I always made them laugh, you know?
Mm,
So for
yeah.
this lady to call it, for me to get up on stage and try this thing that I've never heard of before, and for people to clap for me and for me to feel the way I felt, I just thought this lady is onto something. And she said I was going to be really good at it, really famous, really successful. And so let's see how far I can take it. And it's just every year, I'm like, oh man, I think this lady's onto something because the reception has
Yeah.
been beautiful. So
Yeah.
really, I credit her for putting me on the path.
Gave you that a little bit of like nudge or a push.
I told
But
my mom, and my mom is very orthodox. I was like, "Mom, I
yeah.
went and saw the psychic lady, and she said that I was going to be really well." And mom's like,
Uh,
"Psychic lady, but I'm not." She went to town. I was like,
Satan.
"All right, calm down, you know." Yes, Satan said I know you're caught. Bang! I was
Uh,
like, ah.
for the psychic lady. Did,
Yeah, I
did you
do.
like give her update of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, that's
I can't
awesome.
believe it. She came to the show and she was just like, wow.
Yeah,
She goes,
she
I
couldn't
knew
even
it.
believe
She just says, keep going and it's only going to get bigger and better.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was like, no worries, my devil friend. Thank you. Like, she's cool. She's so lovely.
I mean, as long as
But
it
you
works.
can't tell my mom that anymore. My mom would be like, Becca,
Ah.
don't bring that devil stuff in this house.
ጸበል ምናምን
Yeah.
ይረጫል።
Oh, I gotta tell you this. My mom is very religious, yeah. So my friend, he's a magician. This is the thing. I'm helping mom with like this Western style of life, right? To try and help her understand it. My friend is a professional magician. He's on TV, everything. And he goes, "Can I come and try some magic tricks on your mom?" And I said, "Yeah." So he came and he's making the ball disappear, you know, the little white ball. But he needed cups. And he said, "Do you have any cups?" And my mom gave him three Bunna cups. You know, the Bunna cups?
Yeah.
He gave him three, and he was using these Bunna cups, and they were so good. And he was making the ball disappear. And my mom is just like, "How is he doing this?" Her mind is blown. And then he
Magic.
goes, "Where did she get these cups from? They're really nice." And I told him they were Bunna cups, and mom said she got them from Ethiopia. It took 3 months. And then he's like, "Oh, I could never get them then, I guess." And I told my mom, and she goes, "Let him take them." And I was like, "Mom said you can have it." And he's like, "No, man, 3 months it took her to get it from another country. I'm not gonna take it." And mom's like, "Tell him to take it. It's his." And she
Yeah.
made him take it. And he was like so thankful. He goes, "Man, tell your mom." He goes, "Your mom's the best, man. She just gave me this stuff that took her 3 months to get it from Ethiopia." And I was like, "Yeah, dude, to be honest with you, I'm surprised as well." But then when I asked
Yeah.
my mom, she goes, "I don't want the Satan cup now, but you did all those magic tricks. I don't want to take it, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
But
Devil cup. No.
I did not expect that was the reason.
Yeah,
I
that
thought
and
she
I
was
was laughing
supporting him.
so hard. And he's like on the phone to me going, "Tell your mom she's amazing." I was like, "Man, my mom says you can't come over anymore. You're the devil."
Yeah. Like to get into the house, you need travel. መጀመሪያ
Yeah. Whenever she pisses me off now, I just go, "I'm gonna call him to come over." He says, "No, no, 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 no." And this is how good he is. We were at dinner and he took a fork,
Mhm.
actual fork, and he's doing this to the fork, you know, like with his hands, and he's
Yeah.
doing this to it. And I promise you, Keb, I'm not even making this up. The fork in front of our eyes just goes bent,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
metal fork. It just bent, and we were all like, "Whoa!" blown away. And we could see mom is watching with her like netala and cross, and she hold her cross, and she's like. And my younger brother, that's his friend. So my younger brother took his cross and he put it on him, and he's like, "See, mom, he's not burning. He's a good boy."
That's hilarious. Some magician do it like so well. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just like mind blowing. And I guess we kind of used to the idea of where it's just like a trick, so like it wouldn't kind of bother us. But for her, I'm pretty sure she was like, he's doing something shady.
So he's very
Yeah.
professional. He just wanted to try the tricks on mom and see her reaction because he's like, your mom's reactions are the best. The best way for her to deal with all the traumas that happened to her is because like is her belief in God. You know, she believes that this is life is a test, and she's passing this test. She believes that God gave her children for a reason, and it's to make sure she raises them and they become. There's a reason why God has given her these kids. She always would say when we were like sleeping outside the church and it felt like it was the end for us, and she would just look up and she would cry like, "Why did you give me these kids if this is how they were going to live? You must have given them to me for a reason, so I'm going to keep going, and I hope one day that I get to see the reason." Always. And then now, you know by miracle, we make it to we get an interview, and this is the last interview we did at the immigration line in Sudan. We go into the interview room, and it's this white guy in a black suit, white shirt, black tie, and he has Habesha translator. And my mom goes to us, "We can't afford to fail this interview." She's like, "This interview is if we fail this interview, that's it for us. We're done." "What do you mean we're done?" She goes, "We're done. If we fail this interview, that's it." So then
That's
we're at
tough.
this interview, and we're like, "We can't afford to fail."
Mm.
And mom and the translator are talking. She's talking to the white guy, and the guy goes, "Okay, we're gonna send them to Ethiopia then, because that's their country. From Sudan, we'll send them to Ethiopia." And mom's
Mm.
like, "We have nothing there. We're just gonna go and die there.
Mm.
Like, send us somewhere else. Send us to the Western world or another country. America." She used to always say,
Yeah.
Australia. And the guy's like, "No, no, no." And then finally, yeah, the conclusion was they will send us to Ethiopia. So mom's just
Yeah.
had enough arguing. She just started crying. And then
Mm.
we saw mom crying. We knew it wasn't good. So we started crying, and
Yeah.
we're like, this is it. It's over for us. It's not going good. My older brother at the time, he would have been maybe 13 years old or 12 and a half. He started talking to the translator, the Habesha lady. He's like, please, we're dying here. He had a scar on his face. He's like, look at this. I got hit by some people. Who, my mom was sick. I was trying to sell plastic or buy like a cigarette and sell it per
Mm.
cigarette.
Yeah.
When he was like 13, and he'll bring the money, he'll give it to mom. Like we were
Uh,
like that, street kids, right? And he's like,
yeah.
I got robbed and they took my money and please help us. Like we have nothing, we're dying. And he just kept talking and just telling her all the problems we're going through. And to see it coming from like a young kid like that, the translator started crying, we were crying, then the guy started crying, and he
Oh.
sent our visa and he's like, you're going to Australia, you know?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
your pain stops here, and we were just like so happy. That's how we ended up in Australia. So
Yeah.
I guess it's all about perspective here, man. But mom's very lovely, very supportive.
Yeah. I'm glad everything worked out, and
Yeah, me too, man.
having all of that. So with like after you pass like all of the hardship and challenge, and yeah, it's just like one thing is like it would teach us like how strong, of course, your mom is. The hardships you went through kind of shows you how strong of a person you are. That makes me happy.
Yeah,
That makes
yeah.
me happy, or like to see her kids doing like great stuff and being in a good position. That's very like inspiring story.
Yeah, she's so happy, man. That's what you want as parents, is to just see your kids happy, safe, and prospering. And she's
Yeah.
seen that now, especially coming from where we've come from. And that's the thing, like with people when they see on social media or at my shows when I talk about my mom and the love and the affection that comes with it, that's real. That's not made up to enhance my social media or my celebrity or my trying to be famous for that. Like that's genuinely me talking from the heart. Like that's, if there's anything real about my online posting or when you come to my show or when you meet me, it's the love that I have for my mom. Like my mom, it's easy for me to praise her publicly, to tell you how amazing she is, to love on her, because like I'm a witness to what she went through.
Mm.
In Africa or in Sudan, because I was born in Tuawa, which was a refugee camp in northern part of Sudan, and then we left Tuawa to go to Khartoum, and that's where we were homeless because dad left us because he was an alcoholic. And so I've
Mm.
seen mom firsthand, and you mature really early when you're in Sudan. Like I remember stuff happening when I was like 5 years old. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
remember I think my dad, the first time he got me drunk, I was like 6 years old. That he was
Oh.
like an alcoholic. He would be like, okay, he's six, but he's a man. Come with me. Let's go have some drinks. And I'll be like, "Dut, dut, dut." I got just a shirt, no pants, nothing, no underwear, just like swinging. I'm like, all right, let's go. Dut, dut, dut. Because I'm just a kid. I'm
Yeah,
just a
like you
kid,
don't know
and he would
better.
give me, I remember he would give me Dega, and Dega, because it's sweet, as a kid, you're like, this is sweet. It's like, no, 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 you're just drinking it.
Yeah.
And Dega now, as an adult, when I drink Baileys, I'm like, this is Dega. This is what I used to have.
Uh,
It brings back memories. I used to come home and I don't know what's going on. I'm like drunk, and my mom would be like, oh, my kid, what have you done to him? And you mature really early when you're in the situation we were in. And so
yeah.
I got to see my mom from that age, the struggle all the way to coming here. So
Mm.
now that we're here, I'm always like, wow, mom, when everyone else died or they were taken away from their parents because their parent died, they put them in like the homeless people we were at. When their parents died, they'll take them away to some camp.
Mm.
Some will even get taken into the army. Some will go into a boarding school where they get abused, and some would get sent to Qatar because they have a great great auntie or third cousin or fourth cousin who doesn't really know them, don't really care about them, but their parents died, so they'll send them there. You know,
Yeah.
I've seen stuff like that happen. Where my mom, I'm like, I look at her and I go, man, 6 kids by yourself through what we
Mm.
went through, and then you brought them here to Perth, Australia, and they're living the way they're living. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I go, whenever she complains to me about not winning lotto, I'm like, listen, woman,
Yeah.
You have one big lottery, right? It's all about
That's,
perspective. We remember. That's why we appreciate everything that we have now.
that's just awesome. I guess like your beginning builds character too.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting and really inspiring like to hear all of those stories. I'm sure there is like other people who went through kind of similar thing. Yeah, and lastly, I'm gonna close our podcast with my last question, which is, what is the impact you wanna have in this world?
And the impact I want to have in this world is to do what I'm doing. I just want to reach as many people as I can with my work, with my stories, because I know there's a lot of people going through it, and a lot of my stories are other people's stories as well. So I want it to be heard, but I just want people to know that my mom, everything she went through, and what she overcame, and that she's a hero, and I don't want her to suffer in silence. So a lot of the stuff that I do is to showcase, her as well and her story.
Yeah.
But I want to live a life of contribution. That's my key. That's my goal. Is
Mm,
everything that I want to do, I'm already doing. I'm just doing it at a small scale compared to how big I want to do it. But
mm,
for me to get to do it on a mass scale, on a bigger scale, is to just keep working at it. But I'm
yeah.
already doing what I love doing, and I want to live. I want to contribute so much to humanity that that I am remembered through my work.
Yeah.
That saying that you die twice when you're born. It's the
Mm,
first time you die, and the second time is when people stop speaking your name. So I want people to
mm,
speak my name for as long as possible.
mm,
So even when I'm not here, I
yeah.
want my work to speak for myself. But also,
Mm.
I just want to, I want to contribute to causes close to my heart and just, live a life full of contribution. That's my goal.
Very powerful stuff.
Yeah,
And it's been like great having you in my podcast.
yeah. Thanks.
I'd love to have you again after some time. Thanks for like taking some time to come to my podcast and like sharing your experience.
My
So I want
pleasure.
to say like thanks so much.
My pleasure. And I learned a lot from you as well. So thank you so much for having me.